We've all been there. Someone says something hurtful, and suddenly we're not ourselves anymore. Maybe a friend insulted you. Maybe your boss shouted at you. Or maybe someone ignored your message and your whole mood changed. We snap. We sulk. We withdraw. The rest of the day is ruined by 5 seconds of someone else's poor choice of words. But here's the truth. No one can make you angry unless you allow them to. What if the problem was never their words, but our reaction? This is his story and maybe it's yours, too. Once upon a time, in a village nestled between 3 mountains, there lived a man named Elian who was known as the firekeeper. Not because he tended sacred flames, but because anger burned inside him, constantly hot, restless, and consuming. Elian was a potter by trade. His hands could shape clay into vessels of stunning beauty, but his temper shattered as much as it created. When customers bargained too hard, he'd smash his own pots. When his wife asked why dinner wasn't ready, he'd throw spoons across the room. When children accidentally kicked balls into his drying clay, he'd chase them with a stick. "You have fire in your belly," his mother told him on her deathbed. "Learn to cook with it, or it will burn down everything you love." Elian didn't understand then. He would later. One evening, after a particularly terrible day, 3 pots broken, his assistant quit, and his wife slept with her back to him. Elian walked into the forest. He walked until the village sounds disappeared. He walked until moonlight replaced sunlight. He walked until he reached a clearing he'd never seen before. An old woman sat by a small fire. Not a campfire, but a carefully arranged circle of stones with flames dancing precisely in the center. "Sit," she said, without looking up. Elian sat. He didn't know why. He just sat. For an hour, neither spoke. The woman fed twigs to the fire, one by one. Elian's mind raced: work problems, marriage problems, money problems, the unfairness of everything. Finally, the woman spoke. "What do you see?" Elian stared at the fire, confused. "I don't understand," he admitted. The old woman picked up a stone and dropped it into a bucket of water. Plunk. "What happened?" "It sank," Elian said. She picked up another stone and held it above the water. "This stone hasn't touched the water yet. Tell me, has the water changed?" "No." She dropped it. Plunk. "Now." The water moved. Ripples. Then it settled again. The old woman nodded. "You are the water. Every insult, every annoyance, every unfair thing someone says, those are the stones. They will always come. You cannot stop people from throwing them. But watch." She waited until the water was completely still. Then she held a stone just above the surface. "The stone is coming. But the water is calm." "Why?" Elian thought. "Because it hasn't hit yet." "No." She smiled. "Because the water knows the stone will sink and the water will remain. The ripples are temporary. The water is not destroyed. It does not fight the stone. It simply accepts and then returns to stillness." She dropped the stone. Ripples spread. Then stillness returned. "You've been trying to stop the stones," she said. "You've been angry at the ripples. But the stones will always come. The question is, how quickly do you let the water become still again?" The old woman the villagers later called her grandmother Ember didn't give Elian lessons. She gave him tasks. First task. Bring me water from the river, but don't use your hands, a pot, or anything that holds water. Elian tried everything. Leaves water dripped through. His shirt it soaked through and lost most. Cupped hands, she said, that's holding, not allowed. After hours of frustration, he sat by the river, ready to give up. A child walked by, saw him, laughed, and dipped a stick in the water. Then ran it into his mouth. Elian stared. The stick didn't hold water. It simply touched it and carried a little. He cut a reed, walked back to Grandmother Ember, and blew a mouthful of water onto her fire. She smiled. You spent hours trying to control the water. The child spent seconds working with its nature. Anger is the same. Stop trying to hold it. Let it pass through. Second task. Make this fire last 7 days without adding wood. Impossible, Elian thought. He watched the fire die. He tried covering coals. They cooled. He tried feeding at tiny twigs. They burned fast. On day 3, the fire was dead. Grandmother Ember appeared. What did you learn? Fire needs fuel. What else? He thought. Fire also needs space. When I packed the coals too tight, they suffocated. When I gave them too much air, they burned too fast. The fire inside you, she said, needs the same. Too much fuel your thoughts, your stories about what people meant, and it rages. Too little fuel pretending you feel nothing and it dies into cold resentment. The art is in feeding it exactly what it needs, when it needs it. Third task. Sit in the village center. Everyone who passes will say one thing to you. You may not speak, move, or react. Just listen. For 3 days, Elian sat. On day 1, every word stabbed him. There's the angry potter. My husband is more patient than him. He probably broke more pots today. His jaw clenched. His fists tightened. But he stayed. On day 2, he noticed something. The same people said the same things. Their words became predictable. Boring, even. Like birds singing the same song. On day 3, something shifted. When someone insulted him, he heard not just the words, but the person behind them. The baker who called him hothead Elian noticed the baker's hands trembled from years of kneading. The woman who said useless man she'd buried her husband last month. Their words weren't about him at all. They were about their fires. On the evening of the 3rd day, Grandmother Ember appeared. What did you learn? That most insults are just people showing you their own wounds. She nodded. And what about the fire inside you? It's still there. But now I decide what to feed it. Elian returned home changed, but not perfectly. His wife tested him immediately. You were gone 5 days and didn't tell me where. What kind of husband? Elian felt the old friction. The sticks rubbing. The heat rising. But instead of throwing words back, he took a breath and said, "You're right. I should have told you. I'm sorry. Can I tell you where I was?" His wife's mouth hung open. She'd prepared for a fight, not this. That night, she asked, "Who are you?" "I'm learning," he said. Still learning. Years passed. Elian became known not as the angry potter, but as the man who listened. When disputes arose in the village, people came to him. Not because he judged, but because he saw. One day, a young man came to him face red, fists clenched. "Everyone makes me angry. My father, my boss, my wife, they all." Elian smiled. "Come. Let me show you something." He led the young man to a small fire pit behind his home. "Watch," Elian said. He placed a log on the fire. The flames grew higher, hungrier. Then he took the log away. The fire crackled, dimmed, then returned to its previous size. "The log is like an insult," Elian said. "You can add it to your fire, and it will burn hotter for a while. But the fire was here before the log, and it will be here after. The question is not whether logs come. They always will. The question is whether you need them to burn." The young man frowned. "So I should just feel nothing?" "No." Elian leaned forward. "Feel everything. Anger tells you when something matters. When a boundary is crossed. When something needs to change. But anger is a messenger, not a master. Listen to it, then decide what to do. Don't let it decide for you." He picked up 2 sticks. Friction creates fire. But fire can warm your home or burn it down. The sticks don't choose. You do. In his old age, people asked Elian the secret to his peace. He always told the same story. There was once a man who carried a burning coal in his hand everywhere he went. When people asked why, he said, "People keep throwing coals at me. I catch them, so I don't drop them and start fires." One day, someone asked, "Have you tried not catching them?" The man stared at his burned hand and realized. In 30 years, it had never occurred to him to simply let the coals fall. Elian would show his own hand scarred from years of catching coals, then smooth in his later years. The fire never left the world. I just stopped carrying it. You cannot stop the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You cannot stop hurtful words, but you can choose what they mean to you. So next time someone tries to disturb your peace, remember. Their words say more about them than they'll ever say about you. Smile, breathe, and move on. That's real strength.